This should be a short little video about all the different lenses that I use on my Canon EOS M50. First up is the 15 and 45mm f3.5 AFM kit lens. It's on the camera right now. Throughout this entire video, every time I talk about a lens, that will be the lens that's on the camera. So you can kind of get a first-person point of view of what it should look like. I'll also throw a little bit of B-roll in so you can see what the lens looks like, and so you can see the lens perform in more than just a vlogging scenario or video scenario. First up, this lens, it's pretty cheap. It goes for around $75 to $150 online, but Canon lists it for $300. It's really lightweight, super easy to carry around. It's made mostly out of plastic and glass. It has super fast autofocus. The aperture could be better, but it's still pretty good for everything you need to use, everything you need to use it for. And its in-lens stabilization, its optical image stabilization is absolutely phenomenal. You can handhold the camera with this lens in low light pretty much without an issue. The image quality of this lens is really, really good. It's super sharp. It was made for this camera, and I really like the pictures that it gives out, and it's really, really good for videos. It's really easy to use. It comes with the camera, super easy to put on and take off. Zoom is really self-explanatory. It has really, really clear markings. The aperture, it's all software based. So in the camera, you just use the little crank, the little spinny thingy on the top of the camera. Can't remember what it's called right now, but that's how you change the settings for the aperture. So it's pretty easy to use. There is a manual focus ring, but it also acts like the little clicker wheel. So you don't actually get feedback when you turn the focus ring, but it does work really, really well. And you can use focus peaking to nail the shots, or you can just use the lightning fast, absolutely phenomenal autofocus that comes with it. The pros of this lens are it's small, compact, lightweight, it's super easy to use, and it looks really good. It's super useful in most settings. The cons of this lens, it's made out of really flimsy material. It feels cheap, it feels like a toy, and mine already has a bunch of scratches and dings on it from normal wear, normal use. And the aperture, I prefer the ability to have a lower aperture, but 3.5 might be perfect for you. Overall, I really like this lens. It's super easy to use, super lightweight, I'll take it everywhere, and it's pretty much just, it's one of those lenses where if you don't know what you'll need, take this lens. It's the kit lens, it comes with the camera if you buy the kit, and it's, in my opinion, pretty good. Okay, so the next lens is a 55 to 200mm f4 EFM telephoto kit lens. So obviously, I appear much closer to the camera because this is a telephoto lens. And right now it's zoomed all the way out at 55mm, and let me just zoom all the way in to 200mm. Obviously that's quite a difference, and I have to stand quite a ways away from the camera. I'm actually tripping over my couch right now. Anyway, this lens, it costs, let me see. It's okay, so it's somewhat expensive for what you get. The MSRP is $350. Granted, it's a good lens, it's a really nice telephoto if you need a telephoto, but we'll get to that. It's really light for the size. I'm really comfortable with packing it in a pack whenever I go hiking, and it's lightweight, super easy to carry around, and I mean, it looks big but feels tiny. I don't really know how to explain it. It's built out of, just like the 15 to 45 kit lens. It's made entirely out of plastic and glass, which probably accounts for the lack of weight. Again, it's really not that durable, so mine does have a bunch of scratches and whatnot on it. And the size, for a telephoto lens, I'd say it's pretty small. Autofocus is absolutely phenomenal. Again, it has the very same autofocus that the 15 to 45 millimeter has. The aperture starting at f4 or f4.5, it's not that fantastic. Again, the stabilization, it does use an optical image stabilization, which makes it super easy to handhold. Even trying to take pictures at long distances, the OIS and the in-camera stabilization make this lens really good to carry around. The image quality, it's pretty good. The ease of use, just like the 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens, it's really easy to put on the camera. It's super easy to take off. Focus ring works really well. The zoom is super easy to figure out. And because it has the stabilization, it's really easy to handhold this lens. I would not recommend it for vlogging, obviously, because my face fills the whole frame. And I'm a long way away. But if you want a fully manual lens, oh my gosh. If you want a fully automatic lens for taking telephoto shots that works really well with the Canon EOS M50, I'd say this is your best bet. The pros of this lens are it looks really good, it's super easy to use, it's really lightweight. And the cons of this lens, it's kind of big. I don't find value in carrying it, even though it's really light and I carry it anyway. It's not that durable, so it has a bunch of scratches and dings on it, and unless you specifically need a telephoto lens, I don't think it's worth having this one, because it is pretty expensive. Overall, I like the lens. I'm glad I have it, but if I didn't have it and I had the option to buy it, I probably wouldn't unless I really needed it. Next up is the MEKE, I think is how you pronounce it. 35mm f1.4 EFM manual lens. So obviously this is a manual lens. If I lean in any direction, I go out of focus. And it's a little challenging to use this lens because of that. The cost is really good for the quality of the lens. It's $110 or something like that on Amazon. Yeah, that's really good. The weight of this camera, it's really small, but because it's made completely out of metal and really high quality glass, it is really heavy. But I guess that's good. Premium feel. It's built, like I said, completely out of metal and glass. It's really high quality. It feels like it's gonna last a really long time. And the size is really small. It's super compact, but it's probably because it doesn't need to hold a motor and aperture control, whatnot. Anyway, it does not have autofocus. It is completely manual focus, which gives you lots of control over videos and photos if you know how to use it. The aperture, f1.4, is so good. It is absolutely phenomenal. I love using this lens for portraits. It's a 35mm, so that amounts to really close to a 50mm with the crop factor of the EOS M50. So it just looks really good in portraits, and oh yeah, so more about the aperture. Because it's so wide at f1.4, lots of light is allowed in. So if you're doing videos at night and you just need a little boost. The low aperture on this lens will help a lot. But remember, you have to get that focus just right. The stabilization, it is not optically stabilized. There are no parts of the lens that move to help keep it stable. But the Canon EOS M50 does have internal stabilization. So it'll actually take the frame of what it sees and use software to stabilize it. I heard somewhere, I don't know if the M50 does this, but it may also use it may also move the sensor to help mitigate that. Next up is the image quality. It looks absolutely phenomenal. If you know how to use it, if you know how to nail the focus, which I may or may not do a tutorial on later, this can be an absolutely phenomenal lens. It looks amazing. When you get the focus spot on, everything looks super crisp. I usually use this lens at the low apertures. I use it wide open a lot, which I know isn't good, but if I have a 1.4 aperture lens, heck, I'm gonna use it at 1.4. But sometimes I do get some chromatic aberration, which can be fixed by stopping it down a little bit, but beware. I also see, when pointed at sources of light, it does have really harsh red and green lens flares. The ease of use, because it's made for an EFM mount, it's really easy to mount onto the Canon EOS M50. And of course, talking about ease of use, it depends on whether or not you're comfortable with manual settings on your camera and manual focus. Aperture is also completely manual, so you can change that on the fly. It is completely clickless, so as you can see, let me set it. There we go. So it will not click into different settings, so you can change it on the fly super easily. The pros of this lens are it's small, it's super durable, it looks really, really good, and it's a lot of fun to use, and it has a fantastic aperture. The cons of this lens are it's pretty heavy for its size. It can get really hard to use because it is completely manual. Sometimes you just want to put a really good lens on and just shoot. But with this lens, it's a little more than just point and shoot. I also miss having stabilization. A lot of times I carry my camera without a tripod. I use a Peak Design capture clip a lot of times. And sometimes for portraits, when I have it wide open in really dark settings, maybe to get some beautiful bokeh with lights behind the subject, if my shutter speed is too low, it will blur very easily, and it does get hard to handhold. Overall, I absolutely love this lens. It is fantastic. It's super durable, has an amazing image quality, and because I'm pretty experienced with cameras, it's not a big deal to have manual focus and manual aperture with all the manual settings and whatnot. So it gives me lots of control over what I'm getting out of this lens. Okay, next up is the Canon 55mm f1.2 FD Japanese manual lens. This lens does need an adapter because it is made in 1966. It is a vintage lens, but I think it's totally worth it. Alright, let's get into it. So, the cost, it's actually really hard to find. I think it's going to be around $200 to $250 if you can find it on eBay or Amazon or something like that. But it is a vintage lens, so it's going to be very hard to find. It's really, really heavy because it's made completely out of metal and glass, and oh boy is there a lot of glass. Because it's an f1.2, yes, that's right, f1.2, there is a lot of glass, and it is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. This lens is almost 60 years old, and it is still absolutely amazing. If that isn't a testament to how absolutely phenomenal the quality of this lens is, I don't know what is. The quality, absolutely phenomenal. I love this. I take this. This is my main portrait lens. It's a 55mm and it's f1.2. So you get absolutely beautiful subject separation. This isn't even f1.2 right now. This is f2.8. Because f1.2 would just be so much light that this camera wouldn't be able to handle it. So I absolutely love taking this. It is my favorite portrait lens. You get amazing bokeh, you get amazing subject separation. It is manual, so just like the MEKE, whatever, just like the 35mm f1.4, you do need a little bit of skill to use this lens. The aperture, absolutely phenomenal. I already ranted about that. f1.2, I'm just gonna say, it's amazing. Super amazing in low light. I just love it. It's super buttery. The stabilization, because it's from 1966, and because it's a completely manual lens, and okay, let me just get to the point. It is not stabilized. It does not have optical image stabilization. It'll still, Canon will still do its thing with the video, but it isn't stabilized, so in super low light, when even the aperture won't help anymore, it does still get a little hard to use in night mode if you don't have a tripod. But because of its super wide aperture, it's really nice to use in low light. The image quality is absolutely phenomenal. Lens flares do get a little intense. There is chromatic aberration, and after all these years, the lens you buy may have some impurities on the inside. Mine does have some fogging, but in most cases, that's really hard to see. I'd actually go so far to say as fogging on the inside of a lens, unless it's really bad, really doesn't matter. The ease of use. It is made for a Canon FD camera, so one of those old... I own a Canon FT-QL with an FD mount, and it works on there super well. But I bought an adapter, an FD to EFM adapter, and put it on the back of this lens, and it works just fine. I absolutely love it, so once the adapter's on it, it's really easy to use as long as you know how to use manual lenses. The pros of this lens are it's super durable, it's super sharp, the aperture is one of the best I've ever seen. If you put a speed booster on the back of it, it can very, very quickly become a super fast lens, which is a different topic. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's super cool. The aperture is just phenomenal. The blur is amazing. The bokeh is absolutely, it's incredible. Oh, the aperture does click. Let's get it set back. Yeah, that's where it was. Okay, so it is a clicky aperture, but you can stop in the middle. So the cons of this lens, I would have to say, are it's manual. What did you expect, though? I mean, it's from 1966, and okay, cons. This is just so good of a lens, it's really hard to think of cons. It's heavy, massive front element, could easily get scratched, but it comes with a fantastic lens cap. It's metal. Sorry about that. So overall, this lens is absolutely phenomenal. I really, really love it. I take it everywhere. It's really heavy, but it is so worth it. And as long as you know how to use a manual lens, all I can say is get this lens now, if you can. It is absolutely amazing. Okay, good enough. So this last lens is a Canon 135mm f3.5 manual lens. It is a prime lens, so you cannot zoom. I'm not sure what this costs. It came with the Canon FT-QL that I have. I don't really use this lens, but it is a telephoto lens. Obviously I'm standing a very, very long way away from the camera. It may be hard to hear me, and sorry about that, but keeping with the theme of this video, I use each lens in its review time. So I'm not sure what this lens cost. It came with the film camera I bought. It is pretty heavy. It is made out of rubber, plastic, metal, and glass. And it has lots of glass in it, even though it's a 3.5mm. It is a telephoto lens, so there is still a lot of glass and metal around it. And it is very durable, it's very heavy, and it's hard to carry around. And because it is not native to the EFM camera, and because I have the 55-200 zoom lens, I don't use this lens that much. Let's see, specs. So the aperture, it's a 3.5. I think it works really well as long as you, I don't know, it's a really difficult lens. I don't know why I'm reviewing this one, but I have it, so I'm reviewing it. 3.5 aperture. For stabilization, it does not have in-lens stabilization. It does not have optical image stabilization, is what I meant to say. So it is much like the 55mm, but telephoto version. It's very hard to use because of the 3.5. It does get really difficult in low light. I don't know, if you're looking for a telephoto lens with a vintage look and a vintage feel, this would be the lens for you. If not, go for literally anything else. I mean, it is nice. So if you do need a lens for that specific application, this is the one. But if you're looking for just a general telephoto to take anywhere that's easy to use, get the 55-200mm EFM kit lens. The image quality, I haven't used it much, but I think it's pretty good. I'm definitely out of focus because the camera is so far away. I have no idea where I am or even if I'm in focus. I just kind of picked a focus point, and I just hope I'm in focus for this part of the video. So the image quality, I'm assuming it's pretty sharp. It is not made for the M50, so I am using an adapter. So the ease of use is it's not as good as some of the other ones, not as good as native lenses, but I don't think using this on an adapter is worth it. I can't say much else about the image quality. I haven't taken many pictures on this. Ease of use, it's hard to use. It really is, especially doing this. I don't know if I'm in focus. It is just generally hard to use, and if you don't have the adapter, it won't work. Okay, pros, cons, and overall. The pros are it's durable. The focus ring is super easy to grip. The aperture is really clear and easy to set. 3.5 I'd say is a pretty low aperture. I do have to say though, this is a 135mm lens. It's prime, but it's a 135mm prime lens. And with a 3.5 aperture, it matches the 15-45mm kit lens that comes with the camera at 3.5, at f3.5. Gosh, I'm just falling apart now. So Pro, it has a pretty good aperture for the focal length. I'd assume it's also pretty clear if you know how to use it and if you're using a tripod. The cons are it's heavy, you need an adapter, it's hard to use. If you're the subject, like if you're doing a video of yourself, or even if you're doing a video of someone else, you are going to need a big space, and it's hard to use. If you're trying to take a picture far away, because it's a prime lens, I mean, you can go back and crop later, but I feel like prime telephotos can get really hard to use for beginner to intermediate photographers and cinematographers. Overall, it can be a good lens when it needs to be a good lens, but I would not recommend it. If you don't have this, don't buy it. I like the aperture, I like the focal length. It's just really, really hard for me to use, and I don't do enough. I don't do the type of photography or videoing that necessitates this kind of lens. Alright, back to the 15 to 45 millimeter. I really like this lens because it's super easy to use for vlogging and whatnot. Alright, end of the video. Overall, what you need to know is you should already have the 15 to 45 millimeter. If you do anything that might need a telephoto lens, this is expensive, but if you need it, it's worth it. If not, I might go with one of the other, like the 18 to 150, I think it is, on Canon's website. I would definitely go for that one, but of course buy it on Amazon or eBay, maybe used so it's cheaper, but for $400 or for $300, whatever this costs, I don't think it's worth it. But because I bought it as part of the kit, because I have it, and because it's super easy to use, I do use it. But if you're gonna take anything from this video, this is going to be it. If you're looking for a good lens with fantastic background separation, amazing bokeh, and some more advanced features, I would recommend these two lenses. This is the MEKE, whatever. It's the 35mm f1.4 EFM manual lens. And this is the Canon 55mm f1.2 FL Japanese manual lens. They're both really nice. So 35mm, 55mm, 1.4, 1.2. This costs about $110. This costs upwards of $150 anywhere. I'd say maybe even $200 and up. This will also be much, much harder to find. So if you're on a budget and you're looking for a really, really good camera lens and you're okay with manual, definitely get the MEKE 35mm f1.4 EFM manual lens. If you have a little bit more of a budget and have some time to spend searching for a really, really good lens, I would absolutely recommend the Canon 55mm f1.2 FL Japanese manual lens. It is amazing. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. This did take me quite a while to make, and I originally had a plan to make it a way bigger production, but I decided to wing it. And while it didn't come out like I was expecting, I think it gets the point across for anyone who's asking questions. So I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and have a great rest of your day.